In this lesson, we'll get acquainted with nanoCAD user interface and briefly explore some settings. First, let's start with launching the program. The easiest and most popular way is to double-click the program shortcut or the DWG file shortcut with the left mouse button. Additionally, you can open the context menu. Choose Open With and select nanoCAD platform from the drop-down list, and if it's not there, we can dig into the folders and find the one where the program is stored. Let's open nanoCAD either by double-clicking or through the context menu. Upon startup, we see a welcome dialog window with three main sections. What's new? Resources and Files. The Files section displays all previously open documents, which you can pin to the top. And similarly, you can unpin them when not needed. Files can be sorted by size or date. From this section, we can create a new document or open existing one. What's New section provides information about the new features of latest nanoCAD version. Resources section offers a feedback link in Nanosoft company website. Let's close it again. The platform is loaded, and now we can see the graphic area where all main interface elements are located. nanoCAD allows organizing the user's workspace according to their preferences and needs. And before we dive into the main functionality of nanoCAD, let's take a closer look at the user interface. nanoCAD has two interface options: the ribbon interface, which is what you see now, and the classic interface. You can switch to classic interface using the ribbon button to hide or show the ribbon. Also, if you notice text in the command line, there's a ribbon command that allows you to switch between the ribbon and the classic interface. Another option is available in Manage tab. Customization group. Classic interface button. And as you saw, the same button is also located at the top right of the nanoCAD window. We recommend working in the ribbon interface as it is more convenient. Next, we'll explore tabs, groups, and the main commands. Tabs contain tools grouped for specific tasks. To select tab, click on its name. Groups are sets of comments with similar functional purposes. The group name is located at the bottom of the ribbon. When you click on an arrow, a panel with additional tools opens. Except for the tools, some additional elements allow us to directly open dialog windows, which you can also customize according to our preferences. Visibility of tab groups can be adjusted. To do this, right-click on the ribbon area and the File and Context menu will open. You can note, for instance, that the Quick Access toolbar can be placed below the ribbon. This toolbar collapses to show only tab names. Currently, all tabs are visible. Let's remove one of tabs. by simply unchecking the box. You see that the corresponding tab disappears. Let's also remove the clipboard. Show panels. Clipboard. This way you can customize the appearance of the ribbon toolbar according to your needs. To save time, let's now familiarize ourselves with Quick Access Toolbar. Quick Access Toolbar contains elements that are most frequently used in work such as opening, saving and printing drawings, as well as undo and redo commands. You already remember that to position the Quick Access Toolbar at the bottom, you have to right-click on the ribbon interface area and choose QAT Toolbar below the ribbon. And it will then look like this. And similarly, you can restore it back. Next to the Quick Access Toolbar, there is nanoCAD button with the program's logo. It provides access to the file management commands such as plot and utilities. It allows you to create, open and save documents, essentially performing the same actions as those on the Quick Access Toolbar. Additionally, it displays lists of recently opened files and folders. To open any of these files, simply click on it. And if you have questions, you can always refer to the program's help. The program's help provides all information from nanoCAD reference system, both offline and online help. Online help contains more up-to-date information. Further down, you'll find links to learn all the latest information about the program. Let's move on to exploring the graphic drawing area and create a new document. You can use Ctrl-N keyboard shortcut or the new command. Let's also open existing document. If several drawings are open in the program, as is the case now, you can switch between them using tabs. Additional functionality is available through the context menu accessed by right-clicking on the tab. It's worth noting that we have the option of a floating window, which converts the current document tab into a floating window state. This is convenient when working with multiple monitors. You can return to the pinned window by clicking on it. So let's move on. At the top of the graphic area, there are tools to manage views and to turn off the locator and control views. These are the same buttons found in the context menu. What's the locator for? Locator shows the current orientation of the model and allows for quick switching between orthogonal, intermediate and isometric views, or setting any arbitrary view. You can use the left mouse button to set the desired positions, or while holding the Alt key, freely position the locator. You can always return to the default view by clicking on the center of the locator. If you don't need it and you're working in 2D wireframe only, you can disable it. but for the sake of learning convenience, we'll leave it on. By default, the coordinate system sign is located in the lower left corner of the drawing area. You can control its visibility in the View tab. By UCS icon with coordinate system sign, you can toggle it on and off. At this coordinate point X, Y, Z are at 0. The main tool for selecting in the drawing area is undoubtedly the cursor. When working in the drawing area, the cursor appears as a crosshair and you can adjust its size via Options. Outside the graphic area, the cursor changes to an arrow. Layout tabs are located at the bottom of nanoCAD drawing area. Layout tabs are used to switch from the model space to paper space. You can also use a button on the left to model space to choose one of existing layouts. Additionally, you can create a new layout via context menu by right-clicking on one of existing layout types. This way you can switch between layouts and create your own ones. Next is functional panels. Functional panels are non-modal dialog windows that display information about open drawing or selected object. You can move the functional panel in the graphic area by holding down the left mouse button. Icons will appear and you can see approximately how the panel will be positioned in the area. You can show or hide functional panels using the buttons. A blue highlight indicates that the panel is active. Additionally, you can bring up the Properties panel by using the Control 1 shortcut. From the Functional panel, let's move to the Command line, which in its turn serves a kind of functional panel for entering data via keyboard, displaying prompts, and selecting options for the active command. The convenience of the command line is that if you know the command name, you can partially enter the command name, for example CIR for circle, and list will open where you can choose a command you want. For example, the circle by center and radius. That's how simple it is to use the command line. If you notice when the center of the circle is specified, a list of options is provided. We will explore what this means and how to work with it later on. Command line also has its own context menu, which allows you to make it floating, pinned, automatically hidden, or completely hidden. Just like the regular functional panel, you can resize it if needed. The command line can be moved across the graphic drawing area. Status bar displays the following interface elements. First, the cursor coordinates are shown. You can see how they change as the mouse cursor moves. There are two displayed modes for cursor coordinates. The first is the Cartesian coordinate system. and the second is polar coordinates. You can see the first mode when you only move the cursor, and the second mode when working with polar coordinates and selecting the next point. You can see the angle displayed in addition to the main coordinate. Next are the snap and grid. Snap and grid are interconnected elements. The grid is an ordered sequence of points. And when the snap mode is enabled, it restricts the cursor movement. You can enable or disable the snap and grid mode at any time. Let's use the snap setting. Open the following dialog window. Right-click on the snap or grid and click on Setup. Drafting settings. You see that snap spacing is set to 10 by 10, as well as grid spacing. You can save these current settings or you can change them according to your needs. The next button is Object Snap. Object Snap opens a list of snap modes. Each of them is applicable in different cases. In the preview, you can see how the snap will be performed. Additionally, you can open the settings and choose the modes you need, or you can also select all and deselect all. You can also see tooltips. F3 for object snap. F11 for object tracking. Later on, we'll explore each snap mode in more detail, as well as temporary snap override and its effects. Let's skip 3D snap for the time being. Object tracking. This mode allows displaying temporary dotted trajectories of different types, such as tracking lines. I'll demonstrate how it works. I'll draw a rectangle, a line, and you see the following types of snaps. This means these mode works in conjunction with object snaps. I'll use midpoint snap, and I see possible further developments. Therefore, object tracking expands and complements the capabilities of object snap. We know where to find the settings for object snaps. Right-click. Settings. Object snap tracking on. Faster option is F11 key. The next mode is polar tracking. With this button, you can specify an angle and distance. How does it work? We'll use a line again. And you see that the degree is changing. An angle appears, and you can specify both the angle and the distance. With polar tracking, you can set your own angles or use the ones already available in the program. Let's see drafting settings. Polar tracking. Polar angle settings. Increment angle. Additional angles. Let's say 33. Add. Okay. And this angle will appear in the context menu. The convenience of polar tracking is that when you choose an angle, let's say 30, all subsequent geometric constructions will be multiples of 30. You see, 30, 60, 90, and so on. They're highlighted with a green dotted line. Ortho Mode. This mode has a higher priority than polar tracking, because it allows object movement and construction only in directions orthogonal to the axis of the current coordinate system. F8 key, or ortho on the status bar. In other words, in this coordinate system you can only construct strictly horizontally or vertically. Accordingly, when the angle of the coordinate system changes, the angle of the ortho mode changes as well. Let's go back to the top view and continue our study. Some of you have already noticed that besides the crosshair and auxiliary lines, there are also 3 small items. The first one is dynamic input with the list of available parameters. It allows you to select the next point of the drawing. And displacement distance is indicated in blue. You can enter it manually on the keyboard. And accordingly the displacement angle. Let's press tab. Let's put it 35. You see that it is also highlighted by polar tracking. We won't go into detail about it now. We'll cover it in the next lessons. Next is the weight, which displays line thickness visibility. And hatch, which shows hatch visibility on the screen. It also includes gradient fill. We'll discuss hatching in more detail in a separate lesson. Next in line are the buttons for controlling modes and scales in drawing area. I suggest not to rush ahead and leave the buttons for controlling modes and scales for a more detailed exploration of nanoCAD's functionality. Remember that you can remove unnecessary modes from the status bar. To do that, right-click on the status bar and uncheck the modes that you don't need. I have already turned off ISO. Let's turn off 3D Snap. We haven't covered mode and scale control, so I don't recommend touching them now. See you in the next lesson.